Ladies and gentlemen, let's kick off the official program of this year's Fleet Europe Summit. And what better way to start the conference than with a star? And that's exactly what we are going to do today. Ladies and gentlemen, almost every industry and every business is feeling the impact of the pandemic. Transportation, automotive and fleet, and travel and business mobility are hit hard. But the only way forward is to stay brave and ambitious with an innovative mindset. And that's exactly the attitude of my first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mrs. Britta Seeger. Mrs. Seeger is member of the Board of Management of Daimler AG and Mercedes-Benz AG, responsible for marketing and sales. And in this opening keynote, titled Staying Confident in the New Normal, she will unravel fleet and mobility trends impacted by the pandemic and their meaning for the industry. Mrs. Seeger, welcome to the Fleet Europe Summit 2020. I hope you are doing well. It's a great pleasure having you among us, and I would like to thank you for having accepted also being our opening keynote. And of course, I need to congratulate you and Mercedes-Benz with the constructor title in the Formula One Championship. Congratulations to the complete team. But now we are going to discuss some trends in fleet and mobility impacted by the pandemic. Mrs. Seeger, with the second wave of the pandemic expanding and more countries introducing lockdowns, how devastating will this crisis be for the automotive and fleet business in general, and for your company in particular?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. Very happy. Thank you very much for the congratulations for the constructor's title. And we even won Lewis Hamilton itself for the 7th time. So we celebrated a little bit despite the difficult times we are all in, but it was a big success for us. So yes, let's start maybe with the latter part. For us as a company, what do we see? So I think all in all, if you would have asked me, and if we would have had this interview February, March, April even, I would have not even tried to think as positive as we are seeing the numbers now. So the Q3, fortunately for us, was a very good one. We were above last year, so we saw customers were coming back, customers were coming into our auto house and asking for cars, which was much more positive than we expected. To be a little bit more precise, yes, this is as well due to the strong request out of China. I mean, we have to acknowledge they do not have a V shape. They have the sharpest V shape we would have imagined it in how they come out of the crisis. So yes, our overall result is as well very strongly supported by China, but, and this is very fortunate for us in Europe, we saw as well strong requests, not only in Netherlands, in Germany, in many other markets. So this is a very important signal because the European market for us is very important. And then, unfortunately, we are faced with the second wave, as you were saying. So what is our current standpoint? I think we learned in the first half of the year that we have to be very cautiously, very close to current developments in the different countries. And yes, we see some lockdowns. We see many of the service areas, many of the sales areas in the auto house still open. But we are cautious, yeah, although we are cautiously optimistic, but I think many surprises out of the pandemic situation are still ongoing, and we need to see how long, as we discussed earlier, how long this will take. And then I think one day, maybe first quarter, second quarter, we need really to take a stock taking to say, where are we? Not only in the private situation of the people, but the small and medium enterprises. Then we have to see what is the real impact out of the pandemic situation. So As a summary, cautiously optimistic. Now, I think for all of us, we have to go through the second wave. We still have to manage through the current situation. And we need to observe very closely together with our customers and with our dealers how this will evolve in the next weeks. Yeah, as we just discussed, will December be in a lockdown or not? So we need to work very agile as we do it already the whole year.
Okay. One question on that. How important is fleet sales in there? You are quite optimistic, you say, but you need to be cautious. How important are corporate sales, fleet sales in there?
I mean, the corporate sales, so the fleet sales is of essence for us, mainly in Europe. This is why, obviously, we stay very close to our customers, because that's important to understand how, because we see in the private sector with our private customers, they are the first to react in case they need to postpone their purchase decision or not. In the fleet sales, we have a little bit of different discussion. But we stay close and there as well currently, because maybe it's as well, how can I say, the effect that we get used to manage through a pandemic situation because we managed properly the first wave. Maybe we are a little bit more educated now how to go through the second wave. So currently, cautiously optimistic here as well.
Okay. We are, of course, living in this pandemic. It means that we have also become used to everything that is digital. Talking about automotive and digital, what's the effect of the pandemic on the acceleration of online vehicle sales and also the organization of your dealer networks?
Yeah, very interesting question. Why? Because what we have seen in the first lockdown phase, so to say, in the first weeks of the lockdowns, we had even a decrease in our first internet visits, the configuration, the lead generation, and so on. But then, our assumption is the people had everything to do, but not to configure a car. And then in the more and the longer we stayed in the lockdown, we saw a dramatic increase in the request from configuration. So first visits at all. So more and more visitors were on the online channels, more and more configuration, a dramatic increase, dramatic 3-digit increase in from a configuration to a lead to an auto house. So this was our assumption to say, okay, I mean, this is the way our customers want to go. And this is the way we as Mercedes want to provide this experience to our customers. And since then, because this is then the next thing, because you were questioning what is the intention and the way we deal with our dealers, they need to accommodate and they want to accommodate this online sales as well. So, you know, many times when we discussed with our dealers in the past, let's move into this. No, the customer does not want this. But now they recognized, I mean, this is a big movement and I want to be part of it. So more and more, where many discussions took place in the past, now sometimes overnight in Italy, overnight in India, more or less, we displayed the cars, customer can purchase. So a tremendous increase. Obviously, we need to see, and this is for all these developments we see in the pandemic situation, I'm very curious what will stay as a sustainable trend into the future, or will we see for some of our behaviors going back into other areas? So we truly do believe in a coexisting of this more and more online, and we want to offer even in more markets, because my true belief is that this choice between online and offline should not done by the brand, but should be offered to the customer that he is in the position to choose.
What does our industry, Mrs. Seeger, need to limit the business impact of the pandemic? And how do you forecast 2021? Because we can imagine that 2020 will not be such a huge success. So what can we do to limit the impact and make sure that 2021 is better?
Well, I think what can each and everybody does to limit the impact is to behave properly, as we discussed in our pre-discussion. So this is a very individual discussion and a very individual decision everybody has to make. The second is, I think we have to cautiously manage in the business, not only us, but the small, medium enterprises. We have to manage to go through with cautiously invest, cautiously fixed cost management, but as well to set up an organization that can run even into 2021. We do believe we see recovery even in 2021 as well. They're cautiously optimistic. We need to see how long the countries, the regions will stay in the second wave. In any potential further lockdown, we need to see, and this is why I said we need to continue with this agile working. But if you listen very carefully globally, we see a recovery in the industry. So somehow not only the automotive industry, but as well the broader industry, which is, it's very encouraging, I think, for all of us, because this is what we are looking for. For us in the car industry, yes, we see that we are on the recovery path, and not only in 2021 supported by China, but as well in Europe, where fortunately, and let's cross our fingers that the situation will not become severe, but cautiously optimistic out of the recent weeks going into 2021.
We talked about the acceleration of online sales. What, in your opinion, will be other long-term effects for our industry coming out of the pandemic into the new normal?
Yeah. Well, do you remember the times previous to the pandemic situation where we had this discussion that owning a car is over, everybody would like to jump into shared mobility, nobody wants to have and own a car? What we have seen in the recent weeks and months is a dramatic decline in when we ask the customers, for example, would you like to continue to use public transport? This is a big impact what we see, as I said earlier in the previous question. I mean, we need to see what out of these trends will stay sustainable. But currently we see up to 60% of the customers said, I either don't use it at all or dramatic less public transport. So this is the one portion. So these customers as well, obviously, for any kind of shared mobility beyond public transport, we see a strong, how can I say, reduction in usage and how can I say, a renaissance, so to say, of owning a car. This is what we see. And if you carefully read all the material, yes, obviously, not only Mercedes, but many other brands. And I think going forward, this smart usage of mobility, so the big variety will stay maybe, at least what we see in many European countries, as well a renaissance of the bikes. Yeah. As one integral part in the metropolitan areas, at least, of your individual mobility. So I think here it's much too early to see how mobility will evolve over time. But for us in the fleet business and for our customers in the fleet business, that's a very valid question. What does our customer want in the future for his own mobility?
Our industry, as you know, is buzzing around electrification and smart mobility. You already mentioned shared mobility and public transport. Both electrification and mobility are still in its infancy, let's say. They are not so popular already. Let's start with electrification. What's your vision on the necessity to electrify our vehicle park to become sustainable?
I do not like so much that it's necessary to do it, because I think the biggest change impact will come if people just have the desire to drive these cars. And this honestly is what I observe. So I think maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, we just had a lack of offer of a variety of brands, of products where the customer could choose. And then I think, in all honesty, the first plugins on the market with 30, 40 kilometer range, I mean, this is not a strong product promise. So at least what I feel currently is a positively self-fulfilling prophecy, because the broader the product offering is, the more the customer is buying these cars. And all of us, inclusive Mercedes, we enhance the range of our plug-in hybrids, for example. So we offer not only gasoline plug-ins, but as well the diesel plug-in in our SUV, one of the hottest cars in the fleet business, for example, with a range up to 100 kilometers. This means, in the customer's perspective, if he's charging on a regular basis, and that's necessary for a plug-in, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense, she can drive the whole week full electrically and still on the weekend can go anywhere. So I think that's the first and most important point, to create the desire to jump into this kind of mobility. And even more, this is true and valid for the full electric vehicle. So I think it's this positively self-fulfilling prophecy. And the more people are getting into these cars, experiencing and getting away of the range anxiety, of this charging anxiety, and just practicing it, I think this is where we get the people into the cars and they love to buy it. So I absolutely think we, as people working for a brand like Mercedes, for example, people living on this planet, we have to go into that direction. And our job is to create desirable cars for this, with a strong customer promise. So I don't see any way back for us. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely clear we will launch furthermore products on the plug-in hybrid. We will have 5 full electric vehicles next year. We will launch the EQA. So our product launches are all going in this direction, and we will have 20 plug-in hybrids next year to offer to our customers. So I think the brands are going and offering a strong choice for the customer.
That's good news also for the fleet industry, of course. Coming to smart mobility. Smart mobility is also something that we have been discussing now since a while within our industry. You are member of the supervisory board of Daimler Mobility as well. Until today, not many new mobility formulas generate really money, see a lot of attractiveness amongst people in society. And the pandemic, like you mentioned it, is harming the trust in public transport and probably also shared mobility. In favor of the individual use of the car, what's your advice to corporate fleet managers that are now looking at this discussion and that perhaps are a little bit reluctant in investing in new mobility for their employees? What is your advice to them?
Well, I think we have to put ourselves into the shoes of our customers, right? The one thing is what we want. Yes, you're right. We are discussing this a lot in the supervisory board. What is, and it's an integration of various offers that we want to do to the customers, because it's the customer who decides what kind of mobility offer they want. And what we see, no, I need to be more precise. What we saw before the pandemic situation was a strong request for integrated mobility offers, as well in the discussion with our fleet customers. Why? Because the customer said, yes, I want to have my individual mobility. Maybe I want to have a bonus package on public transport, so to be more flexible in the usage. As we are almost not traveling anymore, as well the fleet customers are not traveling anymore. So we need to see to what extent we will have a change here as well, or maybe a slower ramp up into these kind of mobilities, because many of the topics are just gone. People are not moving anymore. People are staying in, working from home. So in the previous times, yes, we were absolutely going in direction so to integrate not only mobility offer package for public transport, but our Athlon, and I see it here, is offering e-bikes, for example. So I think this is the way, whether we want it or not. But in order to stay attractive for our customers, this is exactly what we are discussing as well in our mobility solutions. And I think this is as well relevant to understand what do our customers want in the future.
But don't you think that perhaps as a large organization, you can also play a certain role in stimulating your customers to choose new sustainable mobility modes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what I said. So this was exactly the intention we had before the pandemic situation. In all honesty, we paused this approach at the moment because we see currently it's not the topic, but for 21, we clearly decided that we restart our activities there because, yes, absolutely, we want to do this point.
Imagining, and let's hope, that we will return to the new normal by mid-2021. How do you see the future of the company car with younger workforce generations, and how will you anticipate a possible drop in the popularity of the company car as a benefit with new employee generations that have new expectations related to mobility?
Well, I think first, as I mentioned before, I think because we need to understand what the desire and the necessity and the wishes of our customers are, we need to go anyhow into this more flexible offering of mobility. So this will then be as well an attractive offer for potential younger or older customers. Sometimes it's not a matter of age, but it's a matter of where are the people living. Just to give you an example, if you are living in a metropolitan area where you have a lot of offer of either public transport, sharing mobility, you can do a lot of your drives instead of the car with a bike, for example. You have a totally different setup if you are living in a rural area and if you are pendling on and off. So I think sometimes it's more the question, what is your individual living situation? Are you just a young family? Are you maybe a couple with empty nesters? So this is more decisive than the age very often. So I think, yes, going forward, I truly do believe, we do truly believe that company cars still are of valid and of a huge benefit for the people and our employees. But we have to be prepared to respond to more individual needs of our customers. And then I think it's a matter, do we have the right offers in place in order to either enhance car mobility with being more flexible, and then we can respond and offer these packages to our customers successfully.
Okay. In 2 months' time, we will already be in 2021. What may we wish you and Mercedes for 2021, and what is your wish to our industry for 2021?
Well, I think, first of all, for all of us, the most important point is that we stay healthy and that we all together go through this pandemic situation in a very educated way. We behave properly because we all want to go back to a new normal, so to say. For us as this group, I wish us good luck and a smooth and good transitioning when we have the antidote, that we then can do a normal life privately and in the business. And I wish us all a lot of success in the upcoming year.
I wish also you a lot of success together with your team and Mercedes-Benz. Mrs. Seeger, unfortunately, we have to close this opening keynote. It was really great having you here today. May you and our future be successful, like you mentioned already. And thank you very much. If you can stay also with us, because we have some exciting sessions on the agenda later today. For example, with the colleagues of Athlon. So thanks again, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.